Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the TCEC season 23 Superfinal between the two top engines Stockfish 15 and Leela C0. So as I'm recording this video, the result is +6, so it's almost a decisive result here for Stockfish 15. Stockfish has now 6 points more than Leela C0, and if nothing dramatically changes, and in my opinion nothing dramatically will change, Stockfish is of course a new winner of a beautiful TCEC season. So let's see now one beautiful game here played by Stockfish 15 against Leela C0 in a beautiful way, Tartakower defense. This game is again quite spectacular. We have here a sudden, really such an explosive tactic that will happen in the middle of the game, which was really a huge surprise for me. I didn't expect that to happen. It was really huge surprise moment for me. I was really stunned when I saw this immortal tactical shot. Be prepared, we'll again see a beautiful but also wild game here played by Stockfish 15 and Leela C0. So let's see now the game. Stockfish opened here with move d4. Leela's response was knight to f6. We have knight to f3, and after move d6 we have now the weight Tartakower defense. And the idea about this opening is, in some occasions, if for instance white continues with the move knight to c3, many times black is trying this kind of an idea, bishop to g4, and is trying then to block the position with the move e5, because we have to say white is controlling so far the e5 square in a good way. So that's why black is trying to undermine a little bit the knight here, and then of course push the pawn on e5 and have sort of a close game. But okay, here in the continuation, after move knight to c3, we have bishop to f5, which is also a nice idea here by black, because black is occupying immediately the e4 square and is not allowing here white to go into this common, maybe classical system against the Perch defense or mortar defense we're playing when you're playing the move e4 and you have both of this knights on c3, f3, also the very powerful pawn on d4. So here black is not allowing to white to have here a beautiful pawn central control, but also a beautiful piece central control. So here in the continuation, Stockfish develops simply with g3, is trying now to play bishop to g2, knight to h4, kicking away the bishop. When the bishop retreats, then to play the move e4, again with the same plan but with a little bit different move order. So we have here knight from b to d7, knight to h4, bishop to e4. Here Leela c0 tries to provoke this move f3. Okay, Leela is saying you can maybe kick away my bishop, but at least with this move f3 you have weakened a little bit your pawn structure in front of the king. So we have now bishop to g6, e4 comes anyway, we have e6, queen to e2, and now after move c6 we have bishop to d2. Here Stockfish is preparing now queenside castling, is trying maybe to then afterwards launch sort of a flank attack, g4, g5, f4, f5 against these two minor pieces, because we have to say it, although these pieces, the knight on f6 and also the bishop on g6, are in good shape, they're having good opportunities, but sometimes you here from white's perspective you can use these pieces in order to attack the position. So these two pieces can be also an object of white's attack. You should not forget about this, because whenever these pieces are placed so in the corner, so you have really the opportunity now to storm with your pawns against, as I said, these two minor pieces. So here d5 was played by Leela c0, trying to break now in the center, trying to have a clarification in the center of the board. Queenside castling played by Stockfish 15, and now we have d takes e4. Maybe also an opportunity is maybe to go with the move bishop to e7, but now, as we said, we can just play e5, then the knight has to retreat, then we can play something like knight to g2, maybe even f4, f5 in the later stage of the game. So here I think white should have really a solid game. So that's why after move d takes e4, at least black is undermining a little bit the pressure in the center of the board. But now after move knight to e4, we have bishop to h5. You don't want to take, of course, here the knight with your knight, because it improves simply the pawn structure of white. White will have now what white basically wanted to get in the beginning, the pawn central control, this very powerful two connected pawns. And you look at this, the knight on h4 is so far protected by the g3 pawn, so far maybe the knight on h4 doesn't have the best activity, but it can be always improved with knight to g2, maybe knight to f4 and similar stuff. We'll get the bishop into the game, maybe to g2. The bishop is very powerful, but these two powerful pawns I think are now the most important strategic goal of white, which are of course restricting very important squares on the other side of the board here in black's camp. So that's why here black should not take. It simply improves here the strategic position of white. So in the continuation, bishop to h4, h5, knight to g5, getting out of the attack of the knight, because if now knight to e4 happens, then you cannot capture, of course, with the pawn because of the beautiful activity by the light square bishop. So that's why knight to g5, we have h6, knight to h3. It seems strange in the beginning that Stockfish has now these two knights like this, really cornered on h4 and h3, but still, these pieces will be improved in the near future, because we have to say it, still black needs at least 2 more moves in order to maybe develop the bishop and maybe secure the king by castling. So the lack of development is something now that bothers black in the continuation of the game. So we have now g5 by Leela c0. Stockfish counterattacks here with the move g4. We have bishop to e7. Let's see what happens, for instance, if you retreat here. If you do not play maybe the move g4, if you don't play aggressively here for white's perspective, then look at this. With bishop to g7, knight to f2, maybe you're retreating, but now with queen to c7, this is a good game suddenly for black. Look at this. So bishop to g6 is going to happen anyway, and who says that black needs to castle on the king side? Black can even castle queen side now, it doesn't matter. So black really doesn't have to castle into white's attack, sort of. White had his fun maybe here on the king side, but now black is saying, I'll castle queen side, bishop to g6. Look at this, bishop on g7, knight can maybe jump on d5, this knight will follow up on f6. So suddenly black is having a good game. So that's why you have to be careful. So after move g5, here really the way to go was really the move g4. It was really necessary for Stockfish to create at least some madness here on the king side. So we have bishop to e7, g takes h5, we have g takes h4. So far both engines lost one minor piece. We have knight to f4, and now after move queen to b6, bishop to h3, normal development. But look at this, here Stockfish is already targeting this weak e6 square. Also the g6 is a little bit vulnerable. So basically there is a certain tension here around the square f7, but also around the square e6. Also the queen is targeting this square, so it's really now a weird game. But notice that Stockfish 15 actually in this particular scenario left the d4 pawn hanging, and the Leela c0 calculated this position like this. Leela c0 simply took, because the main idea of white maybe to play the move bishop to e3 would not work here. Okay, you have a discovered attack. Every other discovered attack is simply not working. You cannot play bishop to c3 because your knight is hanging. So okay, you have your fun maybe with one direct attack against the queen, but nothing special. I think black simply retreats to e5. You had your really one beautiful move, but now the attack by white is splashed. Black will get out of this tactical mess, will play queenside castling, and in my opinion, this is not a good position anymore for white. So that's why after move queen to d6, queen takes d4, Stockfish, okay, lost now one pawn, but as I said, there was simply too much tension now around here around the king. So here Stockfish 15 pulled off really the stunner of the game, played now a beautiful knight to g6, and you cannot ignore this threat because if you move the rook, white will simply pick up the bishop, and then you have to take out with the king. If you take out with the king, then of course the king is stuck in the center. You already played with the king, you cannot castle anymore, so that's why you have to now make a reaction. Here in the continuation, Leela c0 took, f takes g6, but now with bishop to c3, okay, now at least the knight is now not hanging anymore on f4. At least the knight on f4 caused some structural damage here in black's camp. Look at this now, these are clear targets that white can attack, and look at this, how beautiful this bishop pair is really crossing all over the board, attacking the knight on f6, attacking the pawn on e6, attacking the knight on d7. The king is still stuck in the center, the rook is coming into the game. It's now really a monstrous attack that Stockfish has prepared here. So in the continuation, we have now queen to c5. Stockfish continues with the normal aggressive ideas. We have here a rook to e1. Let's see now opportunities in the game. Leela c0 played e5, but let's see also what happens, for instance, if black secures the king immediately by playing queenside castling. Queenside castling is not possible here. That's the beauty about Stockfish attack here, because queen to e6 is going to happen. Notice that the bishop on e7 is hanging, so you have to maybe now include the rook into the defense, and now we pick up simply here the knight on f6. You pick up maybe the knight with the bishop, but now with queen to f6, look at this, you cannot take out the queen because of the beautiful activity here by the bishop against the knight. This long diagonal is attacked by the light square bishop, so it's not working, so you lose a piece. Even if you castle here kingside, again the same position happens. Queen to e6, You can cover maybe with the rook to f7, protecting your bishop on e7, but now with h takes g6, you pick up the rook in the next couple of moves, so it's game over again. We'll open simply the g file, so it's a position that black can resign immediately. So really, really wild stuff that here you cannot again secure the king by castling. That's, I think, now the most important thing to say about this position. So that's why Leela c0 locked now the e file, at least for a while, because what white cannot do now is, of course, to play the move bishop to e5. This would be many occasions a good move, but now after knight to e5, queen to e5, okay, rook to e5, you're getting some material, but it's not enough. It's not enough compensation that white is gaining here. The attack is again splashed. You're just attacking now the position with only 3 pieces, so you traded off too many pieces. The position is too simplified for my taste. So as I said, this should be now a good game, sadly, for black. So that's why you see after move e5, Stockfish continues now the pressure with h takes g6. This is now really an annoying pawn here on g6, controlling also here the f7 square. So we have now rook to g8, attacking now the pawn on g6, and Stockfish continues the pressure with the move f4. Is trying now, as we said, to open somehow the e file, because this is now the clear target, the bishop on e7. So in the continuation, we have now rook to d8. If you play again queenside castling, let's see what happens if you secure the king by queenside castling. Bishop to e5 is going to happen now. It's a different story now, because again the bishop is lined up against the knight, so you cannot again take now the bishop on e5. So the bishop on e5 comes in a different way. In the previous sequence, black could have taken the bishop on e5 and simplified the game. Now it's not possible. So see, this is now a good suddenly position again for white. So after move f4, here rook to d8 was played by Leela c0. Now we have f takes e5. The knight has to move here now to d5, but now queen to h5 is now the way to go, because look at this. If you play something like knight to c3, let's see the serious threat that Stockfish has prepared here. You get g7. This would be a beautiful, beautiful checkmate in one. So this is now the main tactical goal of white, so we should always consider this move. So black cannot escape from this attack. Black needs now to get more pieces in the defense in order to prevent this idea to play the move g5. After move queen to h5, so that's why bishop to g5 was played by Leela c0, intermediate check. Now white needs to react. We have bishop to d2, and now queen to e7. Finally, the queen is coming into the game. For instance, in this position, if you play bishop to d2 immediately, in my opinion, nothing dramatically changes in white's attack. We'll simply play queen to rook to d2. You have to again play something like queen to e7. Now again we play g7. We have queen to f7. Now we take out the queen, and now with e6 we create a fork against the king and the knight, and we'll pick up the piece. And again, in my opinion, white should be much better. So a similar position even happens if you don't trade off the bishop here on d2. Here in the game, Leela c0 played queen to e7, but now we'll reach probably almost the same position, because here Stockfish played g7 anyway. Queen to f7 is really necessary. We have queen to f7, king to f7, e6. Again, the fork, you see, we're having here a similar tactical sequence. We have king to g6, bishop to g5, h takes g5, and now after e takes d7, we have reached now really a beautiful endgame position here for white. Although in this scenario, after bishop to g5, at least what black has accomplished here, that black has connected 2 pawns, which could be maybe dangerous here for white in the continuation of the game, but Stockfish calculated this position really in a beautiful way. This is now a very, very annoying pawn to handle, so it's supported by the bishop. The rooks are very active, and the most important, I think, thing to say about this position is that the knight is very powerful here in the center of the board, but the knight will not stay there forever. We always evaluate the power of the knight. The knight can be fixed somewhere, maybe in the center of the board. If the knight could be maybe somewhere fixed where it cannot be kicked away, or where it cannot be pushed away by some pawns, then it would be a perfect knight in the center of the board. But in the near future, we can expect the move c4, and the knight has to move and doesn't have any more a good activity. So in the continuation, we have king to g7, rook to e5, attacking the pawn on g5. We have king to f6, rook to e1, doubling up rooks. We have rook king to g6, and now bishop to f5, rook to f6, now bishop to g4, and now h3. Look how Stockfish is fixing everything. The bishop is now a good piece. Controlling this pawn on d7 is now really cemented, so the bishop cannot be attacked anymore, and now we just use both of these rooks and attack the king, and maybe in the later stage also we can maybe trade off more pieces on the 8th rank. Maybe we can promote maybe this pawn on e8. So in the continuation, rook to f8, we have rook to d1, rook to h8, and as I said, now comes this move, c4. So the knight has to move. The knight is not good, not a good piece anymore. Here in the continuation, we have knight to f6. We have rook to d6 here. Stockfish is not allowing this knight to be traded for the bishop on g4. We have king to f7, bishop to e6. Now we have king to f8, and now rook to d1. We have rook to h5, and now rook to f1. Attacking for the knight. The knight is a little bit loose. You have to protect with rook to h6, and now b4. This move is very important because now we should search chances on the other side of the board, because black has many pieces that can defend the position. So black has 2 rooks, who has the knight, has also the king on f8. So far white cannot really make clear progress. So that's why pushing the pawn here on b4 really makes sense, because what Stockfish is trying now to do maybe is to include somehow the king into the game. It's not an easy run. It's not maybe easy to make it happen immediately, but as a long-term plan, this could really work. So here in the continuation, we have rook to g6, bishop to f5, rook to h6, bishop to e6. Notice that always the g5 pawn is hanging, so that's why Leela c0 has to always protect the g5 pawn. We have king to b2. Now the king is starting to march. We have king to g7, bishop to f5, again attacking the rook, and now c5. This is a beautiful move that opens now here the position, at least some kind of a path for white's king. In the continuation, we have now king to g8. If you try something like rook to h8, maybe to get back into the defense with the rook, the problem is now you get bishop to c2, and now suddenly the pawn is hanging. You can maybe try to take out this pawn, but if you lose this pawn, I think this could be a devastating big game, because after, for instance, moves like king to f7, you get rook to g6, and there's not a good way anymore to protect your knight. So this is also a tactic that bothers many times now black in the continuation of the game. Look at this. You cannot protect your knight on f6. You cannot include more pieces in the defense. Suddenly the knight is lost, and of course the game is lost. So this is not working. So after move c5, king to g7 was king to g8 was played by Leela c0. Rook to d1. We have king to f7, bishop to e6. Again, a couple of checks. King to f8, and again rook to g6 is really necessary move, because you have to also now again protect the pawn on g5. So after rook to g6, here in the continuation, now again Stockfish plays a beautiful endgame move, plays now king to a3, is finally starting to march with the king. We have king to g7, bishop to f5, again a couple of attacks, rook to d1 protecting the pawn, again king to f7, bishop to e6, king to f8, and now here rook to g5. Finally this pawn is taking. But let's go back. Even if you try here king to g6, then we have this one, rook to d6 is coming into the game. Maybe you can try to escape. Look at this with h7, but now ideas of bishop to f5 are also working. Look at this. This is lined up on the 6th rank. The rook is also here active on the 5th rank. So it's really a bad game here for black. So after move bishop to e6, as we said, king to f8, and finally Stockfish managed to grab this very important pawn. In the continuation, knight to e4 attacking the rook, rook to e5 attacking the knight, knight to f6, b5. This move is really beautiful. Look what happens if you play, for instance, c takes b5. It's just a temporary sacrifice, because Stockfish would continue to push the king here towards the pawns. Now you have to protect the pawn on b5, and suddenly there is a clear path here on dark squares that a white king can use in order to attack the lonely rook here on d8. So it would be, I think, really a cool continuation also here for white. So that's why this move b5 is opening finally the position on the queen side, which makes, of course, now a clear path for the king. In the continuation, we have rook to h5, rook takes h5, knight to h5, and now after b takes c6, b takes c6 was played, rook to d6, attacking now the pawn on c6. We have now knight to f6 after rook to c6, knight to d7, but now after rook to d6, this is now game over, because you have to now bring the king into the defense. But now after rook to d7, bishop to d7, if you pick up now the bishop here on d7, this is now completely winning endgame with this extra pawn. Black will be always deflected to this pawn, will pick up this one, and the game should be over. So after move bishop to d7, Leela tried this kind of a move, king to d8, c6, king to c7, king to b4. Now Stockfish just pushed the pawn further. Here promoted to a queen, included the queen into the game. We have now this one, queen to f3, king to h2, and now after queen to g2. It was a beautiful, beautiful checkmate here. So really stunning game. Let's go back to the critical moment where Stockfish opened the game with the move knight to g6. This was the stunner. I was really surprised when I saw it. Okay, maybe many of us would consider this kind of a move, but then again you have to calculate everything. Maybe we would see this kind of an attack, but then we start to calculate something like, okay, maybe black can escape. He has this good setup with both of these knights. He still has a good defensive resources. Maybe the rook can come into defense, so maybe we cannot see everything. Then we would stop to make this kind of a tactic, would not play this beautiful move. But Stockfish, of course, is the best calculator of positions, played this immortal tactic and won the game then with a beautiful endgame technique. So again, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. As I said, Stockfish has now a decisive lead. This will be probably it. Stockfish is probably the new winner of the TCEC season 23. If you want to see more games from this beautiful event and also from some other computer chess championships, check out our commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by these two top engines. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.